ready to head off the trails. I'm the Cryptid Huntress, Jessica Jones, and I'm ready to take you on a mysterious journey right now. We welcome you to Off the Trails right here on the Spacedoutradio YouTube channel. If you guys haven't hit subscribe yet, please do, because we'd love to have you guys. Shout out to Bumblefoot for that amazing intro music. I super appreciate that. It sets the tone, right? All right, you guys follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. You guys can find me at thecryptidhuntress.com, where I have some amazing shows. All of my schedule is over there. You guys can see where to find me at these public appearances I'm going to be making, including the Spaced Out Radio fan party, you guys. We're having a fan party at the Golden Nugget in Las Vegas, Nevada. That's May the 19th through the 21st. Then I'm flying out to Grafton, Illinois to the Journey to Truth Conference. That is May the 22nd through the 25th, where I'm going to be presenting on remote viewing and cryptids, of course. And then we have a brand new conference that I just put on my schedule. I'm speaking at the Paranormal Roundtable Dogman and Cryptid Conference. That's going to be September 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, Labor Day weekend in Fort Worth, Texas. And my guest tonight, Ronald Murphy, is going to be speaking there as well. All right, so please, you guys, go to my YouTube channel, The Cryptid Huntress, where I have live shows every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern and Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern. And subscribe, like, share those videos out if you dare. Okay, if you dare. All right, well, we have a fantastic guest here. Like I said, I have Ronald Murphy here, the crypto guru, in the studio tonight. And I cannot wait to talk to him. But don't forget that right after this show, After Hours has an amazing program set up for us. Okay, so y'all go check them out as soon as we say goodnight tonight. Okay, let's get to our guest. Okay, Ron Murphy has been investigating the stuff of nightmares for over 30 years. He's investigated the things that go bump in the night and meticulously researched the historical and psychological context of myths and legends from around the world. Mr. Murphy seeks to uncover the archetypal precedent for the monsters that haunt our collective thoughts. Wow, that sounds mysterious, right? All right, so please help me welcome to Space Out Radio tonight, Mr. Ronald Murphy. Hey, Ron.
Hello.
Hey, it's the cryptid huntress meets the crypto guru tonight.
For the first time on the same screen.
Live and direct.
Live and direct, yes. It's an absolute pleasure because I've been a fan of yours for a while, and I was thinking someday she may invite me onto her show, and today is the day.
Tonight's the night. Oh my gosh, Ron, thank you so much for being here. I'm actually a fan of yours too. Okay, wow. And I've seen you here on Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott in the past, and I just have gotten to know you over the past few days, and you and I are both going to be speaking at the Dogman Conference. In Labor Day weekend. So I can't wait to meet you in person. Actually,
I'm looking super excited. And this is going to be in Texas, so it's going to be an awesome crowd. And I've heard from several people that. So I spoke at the Dogman Conference over the summer last year, and that was in Paris, Tennessee, and we probably had about 300 people, but it was sold out. I mean, it was to the brim, it was packed to the brim. But I've heard a rumor that this venue where we will hold maybe over 1,000 people.
It will. Yeah. They say it's going to be at least 800, probably 1,000 or more. Yes. It's going to be a big event. Super big.
Well, I love these conferences because it provides a forum for people with the same interest and the same curiosity to come together and, talk about the unexplained.
That's right. And who knows more about the unexplained than the crypto guru, Ron Murphy. So I cannot wait. It's going to be fantastic. I actually had Nick Valente and Josh Turner on my show last weekend, and they talked it up about the conference. So my audience knows all about it. Like, we know all about it.
Yeah. So hopefully they get there. Because you have a pretty broad audience here, and Texas is kind of like smack dab in the middle, so everybody can go there.
That's right. And you and I are on the East Coast. We're over here in the Eastern time zone. We have to stay up late for the spaced out radio shows, don't we? And stuff. So things are so late. It's okay though.
Yeah.
I'm down.
East
Yeah.
Coast is the way to be, though. We have all seasons, we got all that good stuff. We have strange and unusual cryptids all over the place. This is the place to be.
It is. It is. Now, I got Marquise in the chat tonight. Marquise is with After Hours at Spaced Out Radio. You guys are going to be talking about UAP hearings tonight. So, everybody, please tune in to After Hours after my show, Off the Trail, after we go off the trails. And you guys can head over there tonight. But yeah, okay. So, we have the Cryptid Huntress hanging out with the Crypto Guru tonight. So, we've got to talk cryptids, right, Ron?
We have to. You know what kind of cryptids we should talk about?
Tell me.
The ones that attack.
Oh man, that's what I was thinking.
See, that's a good thing because nobody ever talks about. I mean, they talk about it, but I think that we should do a show just about cryptids that get so pissed off they just start attacking people.
It's a good thing that I labeled and I titled this show "When Cryptids Attack." I had no idea.
Yeah, I just made that up off the top of my head. I thought this would be a good idea for that. So we can cover Dogman and Bigfoot and a variety of other kind of strange things that like to attack people.
Well, I was thinking giants, lizard man, all that stuff.
My
I mean,
goodness.
I have a list.
Okay, great.
And,
You know what? I'm going to sit back and I'm going to.
but you're my guest.
Yep,
but you're my guest, and
Yep.
so I know that you have a list too. Well, listen, we both have lists in our heads of all the different cryptids that attack people, and we're talking about attacking humans, not just attacking animals and whatever.
Exactly.
I'm talking about humans, straight up, like.
That's right.
You
like
know.
Documented proof
Right.
in newspapers and things like that happening. So
Well, honestly, the only newspapers that reported on that kind of stuff were back in the 1800s. Wouldn't you agree with that?
well, curious enough, that's what I was going to bring up. So
Okay.
we can start seeing, and let's go to California for a second. Let's go to
let's
the
do it.
Pacific Northwest, which is kind of like the epicenter and the hotbed for Bigfoot. Okay,
With Patty and all that.
With
Yeah.
all that stuff. But check this out.
Okay.
Let's focus on the year 1924. You know what
Okay.
happened in July of 1924?
Ooh, tell me, because I have a story from 1929 down here in Georgia. So
Wow.
let's hear about 24.
Well, that was the Ape Canyon attack.
Oh, that's right.
So some
Yes.
miners in the around Mount St. Helens, they were staking out a claim, and all of a sudden they thought that they were being followed by these shadowy wildman type characters. And
Yeah.
one miner claims they shot one and killed one, but they looked for the body and they could not find it. And then throughout the entire night, their little cabin was pummeled by rocks by these gigantic monstrous beasts throwing them from the canyon rim, forcing them to leave their claim the next day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the gentlemen actually shot through the wall.
He did.
He? Or the,
He shot through the
yeah.
wall. That's right.
I don't blame him. I would have too.
Oh, I don't blame him either. Now, as this tale has been told and retold, we start finding that some of the players within this particular drama didn't see these as actually flesh and blood animals. So this is a little bit of curiosity coming up right now
That's right.
about this. So was it actual Bigfoot, or as some of these people claimed, were they actually confronting demons that night?
Oh, that's a good point, because they were actually what someone referred to as manifested beings, from what I recall.
Yes.
Yeah.
See, good. See, that's the thing about having being on the show with you, is you know your stuff. Sometimes I get just go on here and just start talking, and the guy has no idea what I'm talking about.
I know,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. So exactly.
I do my research.
Yep, that's right. So 1924 is a long time ago, right? That's a long time ago. This is before World War
This
II.
is before I was born.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are already dealing with this controversy about what these creatures are. Now, this is even before Bigfoot became part of our vernacular. These were hairy wild men. That's all that they were. So we don't have Sasquatch, we don't have Bigfoot, but we have something that was attacking these people who were already saying that they looked like they were hairy apes. Thus, we have the name Ape Canyon. But they also were saying that they were able to manifest out of nothing, and they were able to take on the persona of things, and they possibly may have been demonic forces. So from 1924, we've been dealing with this kind of ambiguity about the nature of Bigfoot.
Wow. I can appreciate that with referring to them as potentially demons because that's something that I've been talking about on my channel, The Cryptid Huntress, over on YouTube. My friend Mike came over onto my show from Abnormal Investigations, and we had a sit-down talk about Dogman being supernatural versus flesh and blood. Okay, and we discussed the fact that a lot of people think that we got into the topic of aliens as well, and how some people consider aliens to be demons, and his viewpoint was dogmen are not actual. What did he say? They're actually not supernatural. They are They can become possessed by demonic entities. Okay, which would not be like where they can manifest, like be manifested beings. They're just being possessed by demonic forces. Okay, and he takes a very biblical approach to all of this, and a lot of people do, Ron. So
they do.
It's interesting to hear all the viewpoints that people have. I totally appreciate it. I use my shows as a platform for everybody to discuss it. Because I don't think that I came out guns blazing when I went public with my research that, Bigfoots can just manifest in and out of our reality. Okay. And they're connected to UFOs and ETs and all that stuff. I mean, that's been my experience out in the field, and I've been doing research for a long time. But I don't say that it's my way or the highway. I think they're flesh and blood and flesh and bone too.
Well, they could be both. Absolutely. Just because
I think they're all of it.
Yeah, exactly. Just because they don't come from our world and they kind of bleed into our world or come from another dimension does not mean that they cannot manifest as flesh and blood in our world and leave behind tracks and poop and all that other good stuff.
Oh, poop. That's interesting, because the first thing that I asked when I first met my team, I went to go hear a presentation one night about Bigfoot. I had no idea it would set me on my path and put me on a trajectory to be having a show on spacedoutradio tonight, talking to the crypto guru. And I asked these gentlemen, who were Bigfoot field researchers, I said, why have you guys never found a body? And where's the poop? Okay. I'm a country girl, and I know, how to track deer with like hunting and looking for poop and things like that. And I was thinking, like, I've seen bear poop. I've never seen Sasquatch poop, at that point in my life. So, it's interesting the things that you start pondering once you get into the Bigfoot world.
Absolutely. Yeah. You know what? I'm not sure if I've ever encountered Bigfoot poop either, because I'm not sure exactly what I would be looking for.
What? Oh, the poop?
Yeah.
I mean, from what I understand, I've never seen Bigfoot poop to this day, I don't think.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure. I would assume it looks kind of like bear poop.
But I will tell you though, however, and this is a true story.
Yeah.
I was outside of Miami, Florida one time, and I had to use a gas station down there. And I am sure that some cryptid had used it right before I got there.
Okay. A cryptid? I hope it was a cryptid. Not like a feral human or something?
Well, one of the two. Let's put it that way.
Right.
I didn't take any samples.
You never know.
Yeah,
don't take. Well, that's really interesting. My son, I took him out to one of the areas that we researched with my team for the first time a couple of months ago. And we got out there, and there was all this deer poop everywhere. And the deer season had just concluded, I guess. And so the deers were out full force. And so we were showing him the difference between the bucks and the does, and the way they were going and all this stuff. And my son just sat there, and he looked at me, and he got so frustrated. He said, I didn't come out here bigfooting to learn about poop, and he was so mad, and I know you've got kids, you can understand it was not what he was expecting. But when it comes down to the actual boots on the ground research, we have to know about poop.
Well, absolutely. So there's a biology a part of this, right? I mean, whenever we go out into the woods, if something is in our woods, regardless of where it came from or from where it originated from, if it's dealing within a biological environment, then it has to follow certain sets of rules, right? And that's the best way we can come across these things and really understand them for what it's worth, is by studying them in a very holistic approach.
Yeah. Well, I try to be as holistic as I can when I'm researching.
That's right.
I'm trying.
Yes. But so while we're still sitting in 1924. May I
Okay.
tell you another story?
Yeah, please.
And this Bigfoot attacked, but it didn't hurt anybody. So we will
Okay.
talk about this and tell me, what do you think may have
Okay.
been going on here? Okay.
Okay.
And this is the Albert Osman incident. This is the
Oh,
Pacific
I
Northwest
already know. I
in
remote viewed
Canada.
this.
Right, right.
I did a remote viewing target of that.
Yes, I
And
know
I
you.
can tell you exactly what happened, actually.
So
I almost
look,
forgot
this is going
about
to be
that
perfect.
one.
We'll talk about this together.
Okay, let's
We're going to have
discuss it.
a dialogue. This is going to
This
be
was a
perfect.
kidnapped man.
Exactly.
He got kidnapped by a gosh darn Sasquatch,
That's
y'all.
right. So this is about maybe 100 miles away from the Ape Canyon incident.
It was in Canada.
Yeah, it's Canada, right? So we're talking very close proximity in the exact same year.
And they're all gold prospectors.
They are.
All
They
of
are.
them.
Yeah, I'm thinking about quitting my job and becoming a gold prospector
You should.
and just buying a mule.
A mule?
Yeah,
Okay.
you have to have
You
one.
totally should.
So
You should. It may not be as lucrative as you think, but who knows? We
yes,
never
well,
know.
that's right. That's right.
Okay.
But all um, so I will so I'll tell you the story about this guy, Mr.
Okay,
Osman.
tell me. Because
He
I'm going
was-
to tell you too what
We're
I
gonna
know.
talk- We're
Okay.
gonna have a discussion about this guy.
It's
So-
the cryptid hunters and the
That's
crypto
right.
guru
So he falls asleep, right? He's sleeping, right?
in his sleeping bag.
Yeah, in a sleeping bag. And all of a sudden, he feels himself being lifted up off the ground and unceremoniously thrown over the shoulder of some sort of hulking creature. Right?
A Bigfoot burrito.
That's exactly right. Exactly
right.
right. Yes.
That's what I call it.
So as this Bigfoot burrito is carried off into the woods, he
Tasty.
is disoriented. He has no idea what's going on. The Bigfoot carries him for over 3 hours and throws him down on the ground on some sort of plateau someplace. And for days, he is the prisoner of this Bigfoot and the family.
Yes.
Yes. So, without further ado, tell me, my dear, what did you see happening there?
Oh my gosh. Well, okay, so the rumors of the story go that he was taken by a Bigfoot and thrown over his shoulder, and he was taken for hours into some area where this Bigfoot lived, okay? And pretty much kind of introduced to this Bigfoot's family. And what he said was he was there. And listen, this story is not something that was taken lightly, okay? Like, he actually at some point told a newspaper about it, okay? And they printed an article about it, and he lost a lot of credibility as just a U.S. citizen, okay? Like, it was bad.
Well,
Like,
and you
his
know how much
reputation got
credibility,
ruined.
and you know how much credibility miners have.
Yeah, I don't know. You tell me. Do they have any
None.
credibility?
No, but I know what you're talking about. I'm just playing with you. But no, he even signed an affidavit and said, what happened to me actually happened.
Okay. Yes. Well. Okay. So. Well. He was a little bit. He was very. Hold on, I'm trying to change the comments here because I'm behind on the comments, and all the comments are about poop at this point where I'm at right now. So I need to change that. Yes. So he was hesitant to ever talk about it publicly, but when he finally did, a newspaper ran an article about it, and he pretty much was made to look like he was crazy, but he said that he was stuck in this cave, and he was taken there, and it was almost kind of spun into an angle to where he said that he felt like they wanted him to mate with one of the daughters of the Bigfoots.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And so, so at some point, the Bigfoots got distracted and he was able to run away. Okay.
Yeah,
And he got
according to
away.
him, he gave them some snuff. The
Snuff. He blew it in his face,
Yes,
actually.
yeah. Or one account says that the Bigfoot took a handful of it, stuffed it down his mouth, swallowed
And
it,
it made him sick.
and now
Yeah.
Osman could get the hell out of there.
Yeah. Yeah, he was able to get away nonetheless, and he ran and he got out of there. Okay, well, so I remote viewed this entire incident, and I can say with 100% To me, it's certainty. Okay, that this is a real event. It really did happen. He was not lying. He was actually sleeping at night. This Bigfoot was coming into his camp, and it was attracted to his shiny things. Okay, like shiny silver objects. The things he was using to cook with and stuff like that. This Bigfoot was super interested in him, and he was a human. And so what the Bigfoot did was, and I think that Osman was noticing that his camp was disheveled every night. He'd wake up, and things were kind of disheveled. He could tell like maybe like a critter had come in, like a raccoon or something, and messed with the stuff. But what was happening was that Bigfoot was going in and kind of messing with his stuff, and so he was kind of being stalked for a little while by this Bigfoot, and eventually it came in and it zipped him up, and didn't zip him up, but it kind of knotted him up and threw him over his shoulder, took him down to meet his family, and it didn't mean him any harm at all. He just wanted to kind of show off to his family, hey, I have a human, and I believe that he was not okay. What I kept hearing when I was remote viewing it was he was not ever expected to or meant to mate with that daughter of the Bigfoot. Okay, that had nothing to do with it, but that was kind of what he had put out there to the public. Was he felt like he was expected to mate with this Sasquatch, but it wasn't. It was nothing like that when I remote viewed it. So, but yeah, it was basically the same exact story that he told. Wow. Other than that aspect of it.
You just destroyed a very beautiful romantic love story that I assumed. But that's why he was taken there. Yeah. It's an interesting case, though. It's an interesting case. Although, John Napier, one of the godfathers of cryptozoology, said that he did not believe the story. And then the way Osman described the food that they ate, Peter Burns said that would not be possible for creatures of that size to consume what they did. But I will tell you, so Osman did provide a lot of anecdotal information about how these creatures live. Kind of an inside look at how they were able to go about harvesting food and everything. So I think it was an interesting case. Are you reading
comments? I mean, I don't know if this is Dave Scott up in here tonight, but I don't know. I don't even want to put some of these comments up because they're so funny. I believe this is Dave Scott. I think Dave Scott's in the audience tonight, by the way. So
I'm honored if that is indeed the case.
And why wouldn't he be? I'm just saying. Yes. We've had some interesting comments about, I don't want to say it, I guess farts. Okay, sorry. So
we were talking about poop earlier, so this all goes hand in hand.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
I know. Well, let's bring it back down to Georgia. Okay, in 1829, we were 1824, right? Was it 1824 or
how about 1924?
Oh, guess what? I was confused because this is 1829. I thought it was 1929.
We're going back even more.
We're going back even farther, okay? Because we have a lot of wild man reports, right? Dave loves the guru. It is Dave. It's Dave Scott.
Oh,
hey,
good.
Dave.
And I love Dave as well, too.
Yes, I love Dave, too.
I'm
going to be seeing Dave soon.
I know.
Yes. I'm going to meet him for the first time in person in Las Vegas in about 3 weeks.
I've never met him either. And if I didn't have 500 children, I would be there with you as well, too. Yeah. I have five children, 2 of them were from a Sasquatch. So that's
a little hairy. That's okay.
That's
I love it.
You still love them.
Yeah, still love them. Gotta love them. Yes. Okay, so let's go back in time to 1829 here in Georgia at the Okefenokee Swamp.
Right.
Okay. One of my fascinations has been recently giants. Okay, giants across America and all these hidden bones that Smithsonian keeps taking out of these burial mounds and stuff. And when I first got into Bigfoot field research, we had a conference here in Georgia on Bigfoot, and I got to meet Jim Vieira. Okay?
Oh, right.
Along with Ron Moorhead and R. Scott Nelson, they all spoke together, and the head of my Bigfoot team all spoke at the Georgia Bigfoot Conference here up in North Georgia. And I got to hear about the giants and the giant skeletons. I was unaware of the enormous amount of giant skeletons that have been unearthed here in the United States. Okay, so in 1829, here at the Okefenokee Swamp in South Georgia, there was a tale of the 13-foot giant that attacked a bunch of men that were hunters down in the swamp, and it killed 5 of them. Okay, it killed 5 of them. Now, a lot of people claim that it was a Bigfoot. Well, I looked into it personally, okay, remote viewing this incident, and what I saw was not a Bigfoot, it was a giant human, a 13-foot giant human. And so what was very interesting, even more interesting, was that I did a podcast with the Sasquatch Encounter Brigade, and they're from here in South Georgia, and there's a woman named Barb, who I don't know if Barb's in the chat tonight, but Barb lives at the Okefenokee Swamp. She's like the queen of the Okefenokee. Okay, she calls herself the Swamp Hag or something. I don't know. She's really funny. Wow. I love Barb, and she told me live on air. She said, Jessica, the Okefenokee Swamp is actually known for having a race of giants there. Mm. And I had no idea, but that was what I had remote viewed, was a giant that killed these 5 hunters that were down there. Back in 1829, it was all over the papers, you know, and that's one thing that, like I said earlier, I was like, well, that was back when in the early 1900s, the 1800s, that's when the newspapers, they didn't censor. Mm-hmm. Okay. And they would put it out there about the wild man. Like we have the Ocheesee Pond wild man down in Florida, down in Chattahoochee, Florida. That was in the newspapers. Okay. There's the Kentucky wild man, the wild man of Tennessee. I mean, there's all these wild men that they would actually document in the newspapers back then. These days, no, it's the opposite. We're not told the truth anymore about this stuff.
Right. No, I've done a lot of research into giants. The mound building culture is really one of my favorite cultures of study. And we know for a fact that newspapers reporting that these kind of armchair archaeologists would go in there, tear up these mounds, and discover very large skeletons, 8 feet tall, 12 feet tall, 13 feet tall. Some of them had 2 rows of teeth. Have you heard this one as well, too, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what would happen is, if you look at these newspaper accounts, it would say that, and these are small towns too, so everybody knows everybody. They would say that, you know, the local farmer who everybody would know, on his property, a mound was open, and inside was discovered a giant, you know. So that would be day number 1. And like day number 2 or number 3, they would inevitably send out to a local university, and the university had no idea what to do. So then the next thing would be written is they sent out for the Smithsonian to come and take a look at it.
Big mistake. Right.
Then there's no more articles about it. There's no articles about the Smithsonian coming to town or anything, which leads me to believe that they probably came in and simply took it away, any evidence away. Now, this is common throughout the United States. We find accounts in New England. There's accounts in Pennsylvania. One account actually not very far from where I'm at right now, throughout Ohio, down south.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just one of those things where I think that a great bit of our history has been wiped away, and it's very, very sad. But even whenever Ponce de Leon discovered Florida, whenever he pulled ashore at St. Augustine, he said that the Native Americans there were over 8 feet tall. So the idea that there was these giant people around was commonplace.
Well, what I like to say is we're the little people, right? I feel like there were a lot of giants. So what we consider giants, I think that was the norm at some point. I think we're the small ones at this point.
One of your listeners commented about the Nephilim, and there could indeed be a religious element to that as well, too. Because if these creatures existed, coincided with whenever portions of the Old Testament was being written, they would have been seen as divine or fallen angels because they were so vastly different than who we are, you know?
Yeah. No, I feel that. Absolutely. You know, it makes you wonder also, okay, in alignment with the topic of giants and the Smithsonian taking those bones and putting them in their basement and hiding them and acting like they never had them. Something that I've been looking into lately are ancient Egyptian settlements across the United States. Okay, some people actually say that the United States potentially could have been the original ancient Egypt. Okay, and I know that sounds wild, but there is a settlement that was found in the Grand Canyon
Mm.
in a cave, and the Smithsonian did come in. It was by a contractor with the Smithsonian, actually. Now this is all hearsay. Okay, but speaking of Ohio, okay, I believe it was Ohio. I'm pretty sure it could have been Michigan. I don't know. It was one of those northern states up there. There was another ancient Egyptian settlement found with gold and artifacts and things like that. A bunch of artifacts found all over the country, and but with that Grand Canyon settlement, there was also remains of giants. Reptilians have been spotted there.
Mm.
Reptilians are a whole new subject. We hadn't discussed that yet tonight. But and the little people, the moon-eyed people, all that kind of stuff is all around that Grand Canyon area. So that's an
Yeah.
area of super high strangeness, Ron.
There is. So there could be a portal in there. There could be all kinds of stuff. So yeah, and it's always been a fairly sacred site to the Native Americans around that area as well too. So as a folklorist, whenever I look at different accounts, I always take into consideration what the First Nations thought about that particular area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's something that I appreciate too is, in your intro, when I was introducing you, that's my team actually goes out and looks for areas of super high strangeness before we go out and start doing our investigations. We're looking for local legends and lore. Okay. And that's what you're super interested in. That's the meat and potatoes of this investigation research, is when we hear about a ghost road, we hear about a witch, a local legend, a local dogman, a local werewolf, a local Bigfoot, something, especially with Native American tells, Native American legends like Spearfinger down here in the South. You go somewhere where that has been cited or there's a lot of reports of it. That's where you're going to get. That's the sweet spot right there. That's where we're going to get a lot of activity, and so that's where my team goes to investigate.
That's awesome because that's the way I like to work as well. Because there's all these colloquial legends around the country, isn't there? And around the world, even. People talk about this new phenomenon of the black-eyed children, right?
Oh,
But if you
yes.
look at like the Ozarks, and if you look at the Pacific Northwest, there are the cultures there had things like the tatter demons or the tatter demelians, which were these children that lived in the woods and every now and then would have contact with human beings, but they would feed off of the fear of the humans or somehow feed off them in some way. So before we
Ooh.
had the black-eyed kids, we had these other things. um I'm just reading some of the comments. We had some of these other things that were going on too in myth and legends from around the country, well before the phenomenon of the black-eyed children.
Wow. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Derek has a good point. There are iron bars over some of the entrances to caves and tunnels around the Grand Canyon and all over the United States. And I'm wondering, and it makes me wonder actually, because I've seen pictures and videos of these, and they say they're to keep bats from coming in and out or something. It's something to do with that now, but it
Mm.
makes you wonder, are they keeping something out or keeping something from going in? I mean, is it to
Right.
keep something from coming out or from going in?
Yeah, because
Because you
a
got to
bat,
think
a
about
bat's gonna just fly
bats.
sideways,
Well,
right? Yeah,
bats can go in and out of the little
right.
cracks, but
Yeah.
these are actually for something much bigger, such as a giant or a dog man,
Mm.
in my opinion.
Or somebody with a flashlight looking
A
to see what
person, a
might be in there,
human.
right? Because the idea that proof might be out there of things that upset our perceived timeline is very destructive.
That's right.
Mhm.
Uh, exactly. There's a whole lot of stuff. Listen, if I've learned anything in the past year and a half of me doing these remote viewing shows and making public some of my research that I've done, it's that there are absolute cover-ups by agency. I can't even say our government's doing it. I can say like agencies or just I don't know who it is at this point.
Right. So these are all good points. So let me ask you,
Hmm.
why do you think they would cover up the remains of a giant or the remains of an Egyptian civilization or really anything that denoted something here before we were here?
Because it changes the history books
Mm,
and it changes our perception. It's all lies,
mm, right,
okay?
right, right.
And we are. we're supposed to drink the fluoride and
Right,
stay in
right.
line and don't ask questions. And those of us that are asking questions and are putting some information and our boots on the ground research out there, we're being censored. We're being shadow banned. We're being made, smear campaigned. Okay, ask me how I know. Um,
Wow.
and so it's there's an active cover up going on
Yeah.
because we are in a timeline deception. Okay,
Mhm.
and Brown Dwarf is in my chat tonight, and he's one of my moderators. Thank you, Brown, for being here. He and I have done shows on this before with just the. Some say the mud flood is that those mud floods are
Yeah.
controversial. Let's talk about the Tartarian Empire with the giants they had there. Let's talk about the orphan trains, the human resets, the old world fairs, the incubator babies, you name it, the Cabbage Patch, anything like that. There's so much. I mean, this is a whole other show that we could do. We could talk about this for hours,
Mm.
because there's just so much deception that potentially is being uncovered right now by a lot
Right.
of us out
Right.
here.
Yeah, that's absolutely
Yeah,
true. So, as I research these kind of things, there are like reasons why you would cover it up. Number one is the idea of manifest destiny, the idea that what was here before were savages, right? If you would say that the First Nations people that were here were capable of producing things that we were incapable of doing, civilization on a scale that we could not comprehend, then
that's
it
right.
shows that we came in here and actually did a very evil deed by expanding and conquering, right? That's one thing. The other thing is too is this is right around the time whenever Darwin's Origin of the Species came out, and it also throws off the timeline as well too, because it says that we had come from apes, the idea of evolution, and if we're able to produce bodies of creatures that lie outside the perceived evolutionary scale of things, that throws that off as well too. So there are indeed, yes. So people, I've heard very many people say, "Oh, why would they cover this stuff up?" There are very good many reasons why they would cover it up.
Absolutely. Now, I had the pleasure of hosting Stephen and Evan Strong out of Australia when Dave Scott was out of town. I got to take over the captain's chair and had the most amazing interview with these two gentlemen. It's a father and a son out of Australia who have tangible proof and that mankind, like, we didn't come out of Africa. We're not like made from primates or whatever. We didn't evolve from primates. They have proof, and they have all these artifacts that say that we were seeded by the star beings out of Australia, and they live in Australia. And it's mind blowing. It changes everything. Okay, the evolutionary process and all that kind of stuff, it goes out the window with the information that these guys are putting out there, and they are completely. I'm not just shadow banned. They are threatened regularly and on a daily basis by the people, the higher ups, whoever that is, whoever they are. They, to keep quiet about it and stuff. But they have a very strong argument on it, basically. So,
Right.
yeah, it's interesting. We what we've been taught is not our reality. Actually, it's not real.
Yeah, that's right. History is really, Napoleon would say, a set of agreed upon lies, and history is indeed written by those who conquer, and by those who are literate to do
Historians.
such a thing as well too. But I am a firm believer. I wouldn't go quite the way of saying that we were seeded by aliens. But what I will say is
Okay.
from the various things that I've encountered as an historian, I would certainly say that there's, especially in the eastern part of the United States, that there's at least enough substantial evidence to suggest that our Native Americans in this area had some interaction with Vikings. I can say that almost
Yes.
unequivocally that something happened. I saw a Shade Viking is right here as well too. So a lot of people, at one time it was 1492. That was the hallmark of when a white person came to the New World. Christopher Columbus. But now that is being changed. Almost yearly. Vikings most assuredly were in Canada by 1000 AD. There are tales that an Irish monk made it probably as far as Newfoundland in the 500s. And it might go back even further. Whenever we think of great seafaring civilizations like the Phoenicians, there is no reason not to feel that at some time one of the boats got blown off course, made it to the Americas, and was able to find its way back again. All these things most certainly could have happened and probably did happen.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of history that's been so skewed and stuff. And I don't know why I'm thinking of this right now, but I did a show not too long ago about the Beast of Gévaudan. Okay. And it was a man eating dog man basically out of
But,
France.
mm,
Yeah.
yeah,
And people and when I actually did a remote viewing target of that, and what I saw looked like a hyena. Okay. It
right.
almost was but it was bipedal. Okay, so it was able to go quadruped or on four legs and then up to two legs.
Yeah,
So what I was actually seeing seemed to me like a hyena type dog man. Okay,
that's scary.
it was terrifying actually, and it killed like over like 300 people potentially or more.
Yeah, that was about 300 people. Yeah, absolutely. You're on the ball.
Yeah.
Plus livestock, but the thing is, people did. There was a few people that survived the attack, and one person said it was as large as a horse.
Yeah,
This is
it
a
was
huge creature.
gigantic.
Right?
Yeah.
And they sent out people looking for it to try to kill it, and to no avail until one time, a gentleman by the name of Jean Chastel had a silver bullet. It was able to, as they say, as the story goes, end this creature's life. But I think it's such an interesting story that I don't think that we really know the ins and outs about it. And whenever you said about a hyena, I think that
Mhm.
I've always seen the idea of dogmen and werewolves more aligned to those types of forms than
Mhm.
like a traditional dogman or a traditional wolf form. And I think that we just come about it because we're more familiar with the werewolf. But I think if there are shapeshifters out there, or if there are the dogmen, I think that form of the hyena would work much better in the real world than any other kind of form.
Yeah, well, okay, I think where I was going with that to bring that point up about the hyena man, or the bipedal hyena perhaps of the Beast of Gévaudan, was that I don't know. You know, there were people. The people were under like, well, how were hyenas in France? Okay, well, there were kings, people of royalty who were traveling all over the world at those times, and they had zoos basically of these like, and even the people in the king of France potentially had a zoo. Let's talk about the Romans for instance, right? They used to like have exotic animals from Africa, like lions and even bears and things like that they would feed people to.
Mm,
Okay,
right.
and so who's to say they didn't have hyenas that they would have, and that was their entertainment, was feeding
Yeah.
humans to these animals.
Right.
So perhaps they had hyenas in France for
Right.
circuses or whatever,
Right.
to go eat people for
Yeah.
entertainment. Then some of them got out,
Yeah.
and
Well, right.
escaped.
So not to step on your toes, but what you're saying actually has to be corroborated because it's absolutely 100% true. We
Hmm.
know that the Tower of London, where you could go visit right now, had a zoo attached to it. And in the 1200s, one of the kings was gifted a polar bear. And there was a polar bear, if you can imagine, in London with a chain around its neck, and it was allowed to swim in the Thames River from time to time. So these things do
Okay.
happen.
Yeah.
Unbelievably, they happen. Now, by the time we get to the French, and this is during the time of the French Revolution, or shortly before the French Revolution, we know that a lot of educated folk, to prove that they were erudite and cultured, they would have their own zoo. They would have their own menagerie. Okay,
The menagerie. I
that's right.
love
And,
that.
and guess
Yes.
what? This is a
Yeah.
secret between you and I.
Okay. What's
Jean
that?
Chastel, who shot the Beast of Gévaudan, had his own menagerie. Guess what was in the menagerie?
Who
Frickin'
knows?
hyenas.
Hyenas?
True story. True story.
Okay, well, that would make sense. Now, I don't believe, okay, there were people who claimed to have shot the Beast of Gévaudan. I do not, but even after they shot it, people were still dying
Right,
months
right,
later.
right. Yeah,
So it was not the actual Beast of Gévaudan.
yeah.
Maybe it was one of them.
Right. And there could have been absolutely, there could have been more
There
than
were
one. That's right.
multiples,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
It's a
don't
fascinating
know.
story and a
It
historical
is.
story. So none of this stuff is made up. Like these are actually documented cases. If you can think about it, during the French and Indian War, whenever George Washington was making his rounds, fighting the French and all that good stuff, there was an unknown animal killing people in France, and he took about 300 lives. That's mind blowing that actually happened.
That's a lot of people, and you got to think a lot of France was very rural, and
Right.
so there was not a lot. I mean, everybody knows everybody at that
Right.
point.
Right. Well,
Uh,
that's 300 that have been claimed.
Documented
Absolutely.
or
Think about people that
claimed.
lived in the woods and the outlaws and all that kind of stuff. A creature of this size may have been able to live for decades without even coming into a town.
It could have, but to kill, and it went after mostly women and children. Okay, and I reviewed it, and I was seeing that it was going after what was it, like the weakest links or something like that. It was easy prey, so probably elderly women, children,
Yeah.
stuff like
Well,
that.
in all of our our collective human closet, we have some skeletons in there, and one of the skeletons that we don't like to admit to is the idea of cannibalism. But that was very much a part of our ancient
Ooh.
past, and we know from the anthropological and archaeological record that we as human beings like to feed upon children as well because they don't
Ooh.
fight back.
Oh my gosh. Well, okay, so this comes up, and I am not, we're not going to get into this topic tonight because it can get our video flagged and all that kind of stuff. But when I'm remote viewing a lot of these animal cryptid attacks, cryptid on human attacks, they're going for that blood, and they do go after kids, and it's the whole adrenalized blood thing comes up and all that kind of stuff. So
Right.
that happens quite often with the dogman attacks. Now, so let's kind of pivot a little bit and go back to the giants. And you mentioned cannibalism, okay? And when I've looked into the giant of Kandahar, okay, for instance, you're probably familiar with that, I would
In
assume.
Afghanistan, sure, yeah.
Yes. Okay. Now I looked into that as well. I've done some shows on it. I've been asked to go on a lot of different shows to discuss my data that I came up with when I remote viewed that, and my data suggested that those giants were, and it wasn't just one. There were multiple giants there. They are cannibals, and so that would suggest that they have human DNA.
Hmm.
So I don't know. Are you familiar with that whole case? And I mean, and from the
I am.
stories,
Right,
they
yeah.
did attack two different troops of U.S. soldiers.
That's right. And again, that's one of those things when we talk about the evidence being taken away. You would think that evidence like that would be turned over just for a kind of like a hey, this is what's going on. But to keep that kind of stuff quiet is really ridiculous. But
Oh, I know why though.
what
I can
was
tell
it?
you why.
Go ahead, tell me.
Because the military, whoever the military agencies, I don't know, they
Right,
were going in to get a sample
right.
of a giant.
Oh,
For
you think that was the mission?
Yes, that it absolutely was the
Oh, okay.
mission.
Because
hundred percent.
as it comes, these it was just happenstance that came upon it.
No, oh no, they went on a mission. Everyone, okay, so everyone in that area, the locals, they all knew that giants lived in that cave. Okay, and there's a connection to inner Earth. Okay, and I'm sure you're very familiar with inner Earth.
Mhm.
That comes up quite a bit when I'm doing my targets or I'm remote viewing stuff. But they were going in for a sample, and you got to wonder, why do they have a helicopter on standby with a gigantic net? When that second group went in there to go locate that team, they knew that first team had been taken by giants, and the giants were eating those men too.
Wow.
There were body parts strewn everywhere. But yeah, it's they went in for a sample. I was actually coming up with data. My data said something about like Elysium and the New World Order and all this kind of stuff. So it was very, very political. But I think they were going in to get samples for potentially cloning
Wow.
purposes. Yeah,
Yeah. See, that's some bizarre stuff. But I will tell you,
very bizarre.
in the heat of battle, in many wars from World War II and the Vietnam War, reports started to come out that occasionally one of these wild men will be encountered and shot. There was a very famous case by Russians coming upon one in a cave, which they shot and killed. And there was a lengthy examination that still exists, talking about, the thing had horrible amounts of lice on it. Those kind of details really kind of open your mind to think something like this did indeed happen.
It totally happened. And what was interesting was after I did that, the first initial show that I did, I had people who had, sons, let's just say, or close relatives, or were directly connected to this mission who contacted me and told me that my data was 100% correct. So,
Wow.
and that they were either involved or their family members were directly involved in that. So,
Wow.
yeah, it's interesting. It's really interesting putting this kind of information out there because I never know what I'm going to get, and I put it out there for entertainment purposes only. Remote viewing is something that I'd love to do. I don't put it out there as like this is the end all be all fact of everything. This is just what my data suggests. Okay, and I make that very clear when I'm doing these shows. It's for entertainment purposes only. However, I do get confirmation that the most of my data is always correct. Okay, so it feels good to get that confirmation, but it's also very scary, Ron, because that suggests that our government or there's some kind of agency, some kind of black ops program, some kind of black dark project that is seeking giants, that are taking giants in to do cloning programs and things like that.
Right, right, right. No, I can understand that because I think that anytime a military component comes about, the military will kind of take it over and do what they will. But like Gyro says right here, Vietnam had the stories of the rock apes. Okay, and I
Oh
would
yeah.
I find that hard. Like it's hard to swallow why our government wouldn't inform us about that because
Oh,
that's a part that's fauna a part of another country.
okay, and I got to tell you, I had my friend, a personal friend of mine, who's friends of my family, Bob O'Kelly, came on my show at the Cryptid Huntress on YouTube, and he was actually attacked by rock apes when he was in Vietnam, having to fight when he was 21 or 23 years old. On his third night out there in Vietnam, not only was he terrified having to go fight the enemy and whatever, he's out there in a jungle drafted into fighting where he went, that he knew that they had just killed a tiger the week before he got there, and so he was sitting there at night on alert while his partner was wounded, and he was staying up, and he heard bipedal footsteps coming towards him in the middle of the night. He woke up his buddy who had been wounded and said, "What is that?" And they thought it was like the enemy coming towards them, and he ended up shooting in the direction. It ended up being an ape man that ran off as he shot at it and flipped his commander over in the commander's hammock as it ran off.
Wow.
And he came on my show. I've never in my life heard a single firsthand account of the actual ape men until I had Bob come on my show and tell us about that
Yeah.
day.
That,
So,
that's a great story, and they're
yeah.
usually very nonchalant about it as well too. I remember the first time I ever heard a report. I was in graduate school and I was driving limousines to make some money. So I happened to drive to a Backstreet Boys concert, and I was waiting there with the other limo drivers. And one of the dads was there, and he was just parked there with us, and we were talking nothing about the supernatural or anything like that. We were talking about our jobs, and he was talking about his time in Vietnam, and he said that whenever he was on guard duty, he said that they would bring the bodies in body bags, getting ready to be shipped out, and they would have to oversee them because these apes would come out of the woods to feed upon the dead bodies. And now he said it as if, like, whenever he talked about the
Whoa.
apes, he kind of restated it by saying, there's apes there. He kind of just said it like matter of factly to tell me that there were apes there, and that's what it was. There was nothing paranormal to his story. He was just telling me about one of the incidences he had whenever he was in the military. Simple as that. But those kind of things really stick with you. It just because what we're dealing here with is something that's not cataloged by mainstream science. If
Yeah.
that is the case, okay, this is something to think about. is there two catalogs? Do we have a catalog of mainstream science, and then do we have another catalog of creatures that only governments know about?
Yeah, and speaking of cryptids eating dead bodies, okay, it ties in. There's a local legend here in Georgia at Chickamauga Battlefield of Old Green
Yes.
Eyes.
Yes.
Okay, and I've been to Chickamauga. I actually have done research at a place called Corpsewood Manor right down the road from there. They call it Devil Worshippers Mountain. Okay, and lots of dogman, werewolf reports, Bigfoots. Demonic entities, satanic rituals go on there, and things like that. But Old Green Eyes was known to it was seen on the battlefield after the Battle of Chickamauga, the Civil War. 34,000 men died in over a 3-day battle there. And this entity was seen going in and eating the dead bodies. Feeding on the corpses of these dead soldiers.
Yeah.
So it's similar to that. But Ron, we have run out of time tonight. Oh my gosh.
Flew by.
Where did this hour go? I don't know.
It
This
just
has been
flew
too
by.
fun.
We were
It
able
flew
to
by.
connect some pretty interesting dots here, though, tonight.
We did.
I had a great time with you. One of the best times I've ever had on radio. This was fantastic.
Well,
And,
thank you.
We should do this again sometime.
Oh, you know what? I think so too. I think the cryptid huntress meets the crypto guru. I think that this has made a really good good duo here.
I think we should be on
And,
Netflix. I think we should have our own show on Netflix.
I mean, well, let's make it happen. Let's
Let's do
absolutely make
this.
it happen. Yes, absolutely. So, Ron, where can people find you if they would like to get your books and things
Oh,
like that?
wow.
You are an accomplished author.
Truly I am. I'm glad you brought
You
that up.
are.
And I didn't have to bring that up. You can get me on Facebook, Ronald L. Murphy Jr.
Okay.
So if you were so inclined and say, hey, I liked what that guy had to say, and I'd like to have a book by him, but I would like to have his autograph too, which sometimes people do, you can contact me and I would gladly send you out something. Sure, I'll sign something for you. And in lieu of that, you can meet me, or you get me on Amazon.com, as the kids say, and you can find a plethora of my books located there.
Plethora.
A
I
plethora
like
of my
that.
books. And as it is now, several of my cryptozoological books have been picked up by Walmart. So you can actually pick up some of my books at Walmart.
At Walmart. Okay.
At Walmart.
Well, that is an easy place to find them. Now, I did pin your Amazon link in the top of the comments tonight. So if anybody would like to go get a direct link, there it is pinned in the top of the comments tonight. So you guys, please go do that. Ron, thank you so much for being here tonight. This has
I
been
had
the most fun conversation that I've had in a lot. I mean, I have great conversations with people, but this has been a great one.
You always
super
make the
fun.
most of everybody that's on your show, and I
Thank
appreciate
you.
you making the most of it with me tonight.
Well, thank you. Well, this will not be the last conversation we have, and I will be seeing you at the Dogman Conference in Fort Worth, Texas,
That's
September 1st through 3rd. So,
I
Ron,
cannot wait. I cannot wait.
awesome. Ron, thank you for being here. I'll see you soon.
We'll see
okay?
you soon, guys.
Have
We'll
a
see
great
you.
night.
Thanks for yep.
Okay, thank you. All right, y'all. That was amazing. I hope y'all enjoyed that as much as I do. Don't forget that right after this show, After Hours has an amazing show set up for us in about 30 seconds. So you guys go over there and hang out with them. Next time on Off the Trails, my guest is wait, who is my guest? Trey Howell of Squatch Me Now. You guys might know him from all of his social media ventures. Squatch Me Now. We're going to be talking about his series. Let's see, on Masters of the Hunt. I'm sorry, y'all, I can't think tonight. Masters of the Hunt. Trey's been on my show way back in the past, and we are buddies. He's out of the South, just like I am. So you guys come join us tomorrow night here at Spaced Out Radio. But for now, I'm the Crypto Huntress, Jessica Jones. I'm headed off the trails. I will see you guys tomorrow night. Y'all go hang out with After Hours. Lock your doors. I'll see you soon. Bye.